make sure that you have something to capture thoughts with. Make sure that you have something to capture your thoughts with. I know that I like to have a journal or something to write down. You might want to open up a Word document or something like that. But I've got one question for you to start. I've got a question to start. When you think about time management, what frustrates you the most, or what do you seem like you can't figure out? For most of us, whether we're in college like you all right now, whether we're a freshman, whether we're a senior, or whether you're like me and you're in your mid-30s, or whether you're in retirement, most of us, every human that I've worked with in one way or another, struggles to figure out how to prioritize their time. So I'm going to walk through 5 different strategies today that I think will apply to each of you. And if you don't resonate with all of them, I bet you at least resonate with 3, and you're going to walk away with some strategies that you can put to practice. So our purpose today is to help you see through distractions and build a strategy to focus on what matters most. And I promise you that you'll put a plan into practice after today. You're going to have something concrete to put into practice. Here's a quote that I want us to consider as we move forward today from a book called Essentialism. If you're interested in time management, you should read this book. Here's what Greg McCann says in the book. It's not about how to get more things done. It's about how to get the right things done. It's about the wisest possible investment of your time. Here's what he's saying. It's not about being busy. It's about being productive. Many of us think if we're going to manage our class load, and if we're also going to start that venture that's going to help our communities, if we're also going to be social entrepreneurs and have internships, if we're going to do all of the things that we want to do, that means that we're going to have to add so much to our plate and learn how to manage it all. When in reality, it's not necessarily about managing everything. It's about prioritizing the right things. I want to help you make that distinction today. So here's our agenda. We're going to go through 5 strategies, as I said. We're going to talk about getting clear on distractions. We're going to talk about creating a stop doing list. We're going to talk about a daily 1, 2, 3 method for managing your time. It'll change everything, I promise. We're going to talk about the power of the Pomodoro. That's a technique I want you to learn today. And we're going to talk about starting work on paper. We're going to go rapid fire, and you're going to walk away with strategies that you can put to practice right away. But first, we're going to talk about getting clear on distractions. That's a squirrel in the background. Squirrel of distractions. So the world is designed to distract us. You know this. You know this very well. Who went on a morning scroll today? First thing you did when you woke up, who went on a scroll just to see what was happening in the world, see what people were having for breakfast, see what people did? I know I did. Our world is designed to distract us. We spend 3 hours and 15 minutes a day. That's 49.4 days a year on our phones. That's 50 days a year we spend on our phones. In 2018, we spent an average 142 minutes per day on social media. That's up from 90 minutes in 2012. And you will spend an average of 5 years and 4 months of your life on social media, but only 1 year and 3 months in real life with real people. Oh my goodness, the distractions are everywhere. Our phones and our computers are designed to suck us in. Hey, so now good job deleting the Facebook app. I say delete all social media accounts from your phone. That doesn't mean don't use them. That just means don't have them on your phone all the time. Download them when you need them. So I want to know for you, the first thing that we got to do when we talk about focusing, when we talk about getting things done, when we talk about not wasting our time, the first thing we need to do is to talk about what distracts us. So for you, what are the distractions in your life? What are the distractions in your life? What are the things that when you sit down to study, squirrel, you go that way? What are the things that whenever you try to focus, you can't help but do this? What are the things that it feels like just an impulse to do? By definition, distractions do not give you what you really want. In the short term, You following a rabbit hole down Instagram or checking out a video that you've been targeted by YouTube to watch. It seems like in the short term that is satisfying, but in the long term, distractions do not give you what you really want. Next time you find yourself 37 minutes into another YouTube video that was suggested to you, I ask you to just look at your reflection in your computer screen and ask yourself, is this really what I want to be doing? Sometimes it is, but many times it's not. The first step is always awareness. If you were with us last week, you know that we talk about having an antenna of awareness duct taped around your head. And so for you as young leaders, as people who want to change the world, as folks who want to mature into folks that have an impact, you need to remember that the first step in you focusing on what matters most is awareness. And that awareness is about distractions. So many of you typed in what your distractions are. And if you haven't, I want you to write them down. Write down the 2 or 3 things that you're always guilty of following and into distraction land. And I want you to just meditate on that for a second so that next time that it happens, you can say to yourself, yes, this is the thing that is posing as what I want, but it's not really going to give me the satisfaction. The first step's always awareness. That is the first step in how to stop wasting our time and focus on what matters most. We got to make sure that we're clear on what we're distracted by. Number 2, has anyone created a stop doing list ever? Has anyone ever just said, I got too much on my plate, how do I drop it? This is one of the most powerful exercises that I've done, particularly if you're a really involved person, particularly if you like the sense of having a lot of responsibility, or if you want to have the bullet points on your resume. And so you sign up for all the student organizations. Is anyone one of those people that signs up for all the student organizations? Say me. Is that any one of you? Yeah, I know you. I know your type. I'm the same way. I want to have all the cords when I graduate. I want to have all the stuff on my LinkedIn profile. I want all of it on my resume. But guys, at the end of the day, we're spinning a lot of plates in the air, and perhaps we are being involved at the expense of being effective. Let me say that again. Sometimes we choose to be involved at the expense of being effective. So here's how I like to take care of an overloaded plate. I like to make a stop doing list. So on the stop doing list, I like to write down activities that take up most of my time. So that's job, class, orgs, social media, TV, sleeping, all of the things that take up more than an hour of time. I like to put those down on a list. And then I like to circle the activities that are essential to me thriving in whatever state that I'm in right now. So of course, that's going to look like sleeping, taking care of my body, eating well. That's going to look like classes, studying, making sure that I'm up on my grades. That's going to look like healthy relationships with good people and involvement in professional development. Those are things I'm going to circle. But then on that list, we want you to also cross through the activities that you're doing out of guilt or obligation or boredom that don't add value to you or others. So this is a student organization that you joined because your roommate started it and they're the vice president and they needed people to join, but it's not really the career path that you want to follow. That looks like continuing to hang out with that group of students that you went to high school with, but now in college, you really don't see the world the same way, but you're hanging out with them because you're guilty because you don't want to hurt their feelings because you went to high school together. That looks like 3 hours of social media on the phone. That looks like 4 hours of TV a day. We'll cross through those things, and immediately upon crossing through those things, we do our best to quit the activities that aren't getting us what we want or need. I encourage you to take the 5 minutes it will take to create a stop doing list where you list the ways you spend your time, circle what matters most, cross through what doesn't, and quit the necessary items without any guilt. Now, Reagan, what if I committed to an organization for the whole semester and I can't quit? Yeah, fulfill your obligation. I totally get that. Don't bail on people, but as soon as possible, try and end that obligation so that you can open up space on your calendar. I see we in the chat, we've got when we say no to things, it allows us to say yes to opportunities or just to focus on the few you've already committed to. This is beautiful wisdom. This is beautiful wisdom. Okay, so we're moving into the third step of how to stop wasting time and focus on what matters most. We've talked about bringing awareness to our distractions and then putting down everything on our plate and creating a stop doing list. Now, what do we do with our time? How do I schedule my days? And let me show you the exact tool that I use. This is literally the notebook that I use to schedule every one of my days, and it's called the 1, 2, 3 method. So here's the best way to prioritize your time to focus on what matters most, and it's called the 1, 2, 3 method. And it's very simple. This is not rocket science, but sometimes just because it isn't new doesn't make it any less true. So on this PDF, what you'll see is that at the very top, I want you to write down your number one priority for the day. This is the long-term high focus target, like a campaign that you're running for one of your student organizations, or the term paper that you know is going to be due at the end of the semester, or that job application that's going to take you a while for that job or internship that you really want. You're going to put that at the top of the list, and that is the only thing you focus on that day, and you do not move on to the next ones until you are finished. And then we follow that with 2 midterm or moderate focus objectives and 3 short-term and lower priority tasks. I do this every morning, and because I do it every morning, at least I know I'm working on the number one most important thing. This takes 2 minutes to fill out, and it changes everything. So again, on the 1, 2, 3 method, step 1 is the one high priority, high focus target per day. This is one of those things that's going to take like 60 minutes or 2 hours to complete. This is like reading those 3 chapters for biology and doing the study questions. This is like writing the first draft of that paper. This is like building the social media campaign for me running for student office. This is like making sure I'm getting all of my references from this job application that I'm going to do. This requires uninterrupted protected focus time. This means you leave your phone in your backpack. And if you accomplish nothing else but this one thing, the day would be successful. Imagine that. Imagine you do your number one top priority, you spend 60, 90, 120 minutes on it, and your whole day goes to crap. You will at least know that you focused on the one thing that's moving your life forward. You need to schedule this when you're most productive. Some of us are morning people. Some of us are evening people. Some of us can be disciplined and productive whenever you want. I don't care if you're a morning person or a night owl. Make sure that you put this down when you have the energy to do it. The next one, you're going to pick 2 midterm or moderate focus objectives per day. So these are the 45-minute, 60-minute things. This is like doing homework for class tomorrow. This is like reading 1 chapter of the reading that you need to take care of. This is like spending some time answering emails for your student organization, stuff like that. This does require protected focus, but it's more incremental work on larger objectives. So this is like bite-sized chunks of a bigger project. You might do a little bit of work on a project that you know is going to take you several weeks to do. You should still have some gas in the tank for these. And then the last one, it's always essential to make sure to make time for some 3 short-term, lower priority tasks. So, this is stuff that helps you move the week forward. Maybe you need to go, to counseling. Maybe you need to go get your car inspected. Maybe you need to grocery shop. Maybe you need to work out. Maybe you just need to go to your professor's office hours just to check in real quick. These are some smaller tasks that can be done between larger tasks. And if you have to delegate them or delay them till next week, it's not going to kill you. This is how I think about every single day. And I promise you, if you take 2 minutes to reflect in the morning on the number one most important task, followed by 2 medium-sized tasks and 3 everyday items, everything's going to change for you. So to do this, every morning, write down the 1, 2, 3 priorities, check them off in order. Don't get disappointed with 1 and go work on 3. Keep to 1 until it's done. When the work is finished, think about what worked and went well today. Think about what didn't work. Think about some roadblocks or distractions. How might you do things differently tomorrow? And go ahead and fill out the page for tomorrow. So when you wake up, you're not asking questions about what you should do. and other people can't distract you from your top priorities. That is the 1-2-3 method, and it helps us focus on what's most essential. Remember, I quoted Craig McCann at the beginning of this presentation, and here's how he talks about the importance of focusing our energy. If you look at the circle on the left, imagine that ball of energy is all the energy you have for a day. Imagine if you're spinning all the plates of 10 organizations and you're distracting yourself with your phone. Look at how far you get when your energy is going in a bunch of different directions, all unsynced. As opposed to when you spend the time to do the 1-2-3 method, to bring awareness to your distractions, to create a stop doing list and actually focus on your number one priority, look how much distance you make when you choose to utilize your energy focused in one direction. It can change everything. For those of you who said, I struggle with procrastination, all you have to do is get clear focus on the one thing, put your phone away and begin. And I promise you, once you're 5 minutes into that thing you don't want to do, it gets so much easier. Is anyone ever experienced in a workout or when you take a run and you don't want to run, but then 2 minutes into the run, you're like, oh yeah, I like running. So let me tell you, it's the same thing with your brain work. Your body work is the same thing as your brain work. We know that running is good for us, or whatever or yoga or meditation. We know it's good for us. It just takes us a couple minutes to remember. So for my procrastinators out there, much love to you. Just remember, it takes 3, 4, 5 minutes into a task to realize that this is where I want to be, and you'll start to catch momentum. Okay, how do we keep that momentum though? Oh, I can't wait to give you a tool. Maybe you say, Reagan, I love the idea of this list. I get it, but I'm going to be distracted by all the different blanks. I'm going to want to dance around like a June bug on this thing. So let me tell you how to keep the focus. Let me tell you how to keep the focus, and that's the power of the Pomodoro. This has changed everything for me in my adult life. So you've got a lot to do. And man, your phone's buzzing and beeping, and you got emails coming in, and people are wanting to hang out. I'm going to tell you, a Pomodoro is going to change everything for you. Basically, a Pomodoro is limiting the amount of time that you have to complete a task. Here's the definition. It's simple. It's not rocket science. For the Pomodoro technique, you use a timer to break down work into little bitty intervals, and it's normally 25 minutes in length, and you separate it by short breaks. So what this means for you is you don't say to yourself, I have to read 4 hours worth of history chapters to catch up for the tests next week. Instead, you say to yourself, I need to do 8 25-minute Pomodoros for history. And I'm going to do 2 of them before lunch, and I'm going to do 2 of them after lunch. Maybe I'll catch a wind of energy and do 1 tonight, but then I'll do 4 tomorrow. So most of us avoid tasks that seem to be too big, and we think, how will I ever in one sitting do 4 hours of history work? But if you use the Pomodoro technique and you say, that's just 8 25-minute reading sessions, and then I get a short break, it changes our ability to digest the difficulty of what it is that we need to do. So break everything. I want you to break your day into 25-minute chunks. So if you're doing your number one top priority and that's going to take 90 minutes, I want that to be 3 25-minute chunks to get that done. Zig Ziglar, the great motivational speaker, says, isn't it how much stuff we can get done the day before vacation? You know what I'm talking about. You're about to go to Cabo with your friends, and all of a sudden you become really productive. You know what I mean? Or how about this? Maybe here's one you understand. Isn't it amazing how much stuff we get done the night before a test? Yeah, you know what I'm talking about. The reason why we get so much done the day before a vacation or the night before a test is simply because we have shortened the window of the amount of time we have to do it. This is what a Pomodoro does. It's a 25-minute sprint to the finish where you only focus on one thing. This is Parkinson's law, which states work expands to fill the time available for its completion. That means if you give yourself 4 hours to do your history reading, it's going to take 4 hours. But if you challenge yourself to do it in 2 hours and 45 minutes, because then you get to go do something fun with your friends, you might get it done in 2 hours and 45 minutes or 3 hours. You just have to be the one to own it instead of reacting to the stress of, oh, it's going to be 4 hours. I encourage you to use the Pomodoro technique to split up your time, make it more digestible, and keep you focused and energized. Shrink the time available to accomplish your work. Do 25-minute sprints and watch it change. It's a game. It's a game. And to make it a game, I like to use Pomo Focus. If you just Google Pomodoro timers, this is one that's on the desktop, and you'll notice you can add your tasks down below and check them off. So gamifying is really helpful. I also like the app Forest, which is really gamified, which it helps you grow trees and plants for the amount of time you stay focused. And if you choose to not focus, you kill your trees and plants, and then you feel terrible. Why would you want to do that? So I encourage you to do Pomodoros. Download an app. Here's the last one. We're doing great. Maybe take a deep breath with me. Breathe in with me wherever you are, and breathe out. You're doing great. I know you're engaged. Thanks for sticking with us. This is the last one. And again, just because this isn't new doesn't make it any less true. I'm telling you, one of the most important parts of my work rhythm is starting on paper first. To decrease distractions whenever I'm getting ready to build something, I always start in a notebook first. When I was preparing this presentation, I sketched out the PowerPoint slides and I made little scribble notes underneath before I got on my computer. Why? Because my computer is a wasteland of distractions, and I know it. Next thing I know, I'm going to be checking my credit score and Googling my mom and trying to figure out if I can afford to buy a house in Los Angeles. Like, it's game over. We know this about our devices, so why do we continue to come back to them when we could set a Pomodoro timer, sit in a chair away from our computer, and get our ideas down, and then come transcribe them onto the screen? This is simple but effective. So I encourage you to consider starting on paper first with things like your stop doing list, particularly your daily 1, 2, 3, which you're going to get a PDF of, any planning. If you've got an idea for a project or for your student organization or for a presentation that you need to give, maybe you're a tour guide at your university and you want to change up your presentation, start on paper first. Rough drafts of essays and papers, start on paper first. At least make an outline, and that way when you get to Microsoft Word, all you're doing is filling in the blanks between the spaces on your outline instead of checking YouTube. Sketch out PowerPoint slides first instead of just going down the clip art rabbit hole. You know what I'm talking about, when you need that one image for your PowerPoint slide and you spend 5 hours looking for one image that's just right. Yeah, don't waste time on that. Draw out the slides first and then transpose it. Sometimes I'll respond to emails written out so I don't have the distraction of my inbox. And for me, social media is a part of my business, so I'll draft out social media posts before I get to Instagram. Maybe you run social media for an internship or for your organization, but man, it's distracting going into Instagram to write for Instagram. Sometimes it's important to schedule out your week's worth of posts by hand, or maybe in a note on your phone. Then you can drop it into Instagram. This is simple but transformative, starting work on paper. Okay? These are the 5 strategies that in all of the coaching I've done with students and entrepreneurs that have been most effective. Number 1, we talked about getting clear on distractions. The first step is awareness. Most of us, because marketing geniuses in the world are so good at what they do, most of us aren't even aware that we're distracted when we're distracted. So step 1 is bringing awareness. The most effective people are the most reflective people. Be aware of what's distracting you. Next one, we talked about creating a stop doing list. If you feel overloaded, this one's for you. Write every obligation on a piece of paper. Circle the ones that are essential for you to move forward, cross the ones out that aren't, and promptly quit all of the things that are no longer helping you be who you want to be. Number 3, we talked about the daily 1, 2, 3 method. I want you guys to use that. We talked about the power of the Pomodoro. Get that app, time yourself for 25-minute chunks, and watch what you thought was a huge task be chipped away 25-minute chunk by 25-minute chunk. Anybody can do something for 25 minutes. And lastly, if you find that your computer's always distracting you and you open it up to start a paper and 3 hours later you haven't written one word, start on paper. Keep the laptop shut, start on paper, and then show up with a draft and make it easy on yourself. This stuff is not easy, but it's also not complicated. It just requires awareness.